Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Growing Up Alien. And today is a really nice, cloudy, rainy day here in Massachusetts. So one of my favorites. We have some wonderful guests coming up. Looking forward to that in the coming weeks, starting actually on Monday. So that'll so yeah, some really cool stuff. I know everyone will certainly be pleased to meet these folks. So that's really the goal of Growing Up Alien, isn't it? I mean, to offer this platform to all y'all to come forward and share your experiences and to find folks who have similar experiences, which leads us into today's topic and whichever nonlinear way I can produce, knowing me. So what I want to talk about is how the MyLab through Raytheon and the actually it's part of the Army, were able to manufacture or almost, kind of reminds me of a fountain, but how they were able to create the altar that I still have with me. So the altar that they developed inside of me through the fracturing type method isn't one in which it sits in a clone. It's actually one in which it sits inside me. And I know there's many folks out there who have a similar situation. So the alters that exist in the clones can kind of be neutralized. And some of what I want to talk about today ties into the Jamie Martinez work and also his current crusade to warn people about this commercialization basically of the MK Ultra mind control type of sort of it's almost it's a selling basically of your consciousness. This is what they're trying to do. So before this critical stage, the mind control technologies, which largely use frequency, although they can use chips and things like that, were directed towards us, obviously the envoys, and to certain targeted individuals and communities. They could direct them towards anyone, but it was under the control of the military. So the plan now, as we have been mentioning, is that to commercialize it, right? So to sell the technology, to sell the way this is done to the larger corporation. And of course, as you know, and actually for my last video, I explained that Earth is owned and run by an interstellar conglomerate. And the beings on the planet are the property, they're the inventory, they're the resources. Like if you're a farmer and you raise peaches or you raise asparagus, right? That's what you are. You're the asparagus. And now what they want to do is legally allow this conglomerate, even though it was doing it before anyway, but to basically legally allow it to operate and use this mind control tech. So you could have ads running in your head. They're basically going to sell, they sell rights now, so they can sell your phone number and things like that. They're going to sell your mind. This is where we're headed. So how they created the alter in me was they wanted to weaponize the sort of abilities that this consciousness came in with. So they know, the military, what types of abilities and ways that they can exploit these different little tricks that you have inside of you when you came in here as an envoy, as a starseed. So when I came in, they knew there were a few things that they wanted to weaponize. And what they had done on Era before I actually went through the Intergalactic Confederation to starseed out and put my body in stasis was that they were able to mesh an AI with my consciousness. So it follows my consciousness. It's sort of what it is a firewall. So what Raytheon and largely the military at this point, I can remember it being kind of they were doing it with the engineering, the lab. But then they tried to bring in the military. I mean, I just remember having a lot of military experience with this. So they use learned helplessness and trauma to kind of to fracture you. So they didn't fracture me to take out the conscious or to split, I mean, to sort of extract the consciousness and put it into a clone or save it in a, they put them in these little containers, basically, it's like there's electromagnetic. So what they did was when I was about, I'm going to say 8 years old and then after, but not too far into my teenage years. So really around 8, 9, or 10, they would um, use aggression. So I remember being in this room. It was like kind of a steel colored room, but it was like, it reminded me of they have those one-way mirrors or whatever when they do those interrogations. So when the police, that's what it looked like an interrogation room. And there wasn't a lot of furniture in there. And I remember there being a table. And I remember there was one like scientist in the white sciencey coat that was there. It was a man. He had glasses on and he was balding. There was that guy. Then there was like 3 or 4 military, and they were in army uniforms. And they would throw me around. So what they were trying to do was induce a learned helplessness. From the learned helplessness, they figure they could then control another aspect of my consciousness. So it's sort of like it piggybacks on the trauma reactions that your body has in these kinds of situations. So they were able to do this. So through repeated, like, I can't really remember. I just remember being thrown around. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of like violence and aggression. It was very strange. There was humiliation, and of course there were the rapes. And I can remember like the smell of their uniforms and like cigarette smoke, I think, and there was just some like some weird like machine smells and things like that came off their uniforms. So yeah, so I was thrown around a lot, and it was basically like getting you to just give up. And it eventually it did work. So they were able to like create that fracture. So once they got me to the state where I was in full learned helplessness and I didn't resist, they then were able to sort of, I don't know if they used frequencies or whatever, they were able to sort of get me to do a cornered animal type thing. So I went from that learned helplessness stage to a rage. And this is what they wanted. So I was basically, like you corner, say there's a, you see these terrible videos of like, say, a bobcat or something caught in those leg hole traps, right? And they're just ready to, that's what they did. So they got me to that point where I would then just like, I just went off. And then that's what they wanted, because they were going to weaponize. They wanted to use it. I never made it to the secret space program because that's where they were going to send me. But that's when this firewall that the Errahel put in my consciousness would turn on. So they were really happy with how far they could get. So the alter in me is in me. It is still in me. It is, I'm not going to say fight or flight. It is fight. And it is, well, they wanted me to be an assassin. That's what it is. It's a rage assassin. And that's what they were able to split in my consciousness and keep it there. I don't know actually how they did it, but it was at that point where I shifted to the rage that they were able to lock it in. As they locked it in, the AI lifted and prevented it from merging fully with my entire consciousness. Had it merged fully with my entire consciousness, I would not have been able to have been integrated back into society. So I would have disappeared from society. That would have been the final portaling out of my house, abduction. I would have just been a missing person. and then they would have used me in the SSP. It wouldn't have been a 20 and back situation because I was not reformable at this point. I would have been, completely dangerous. So, um, so luckily, I have this AI firewall that's kind of locked in there, and I can explain to people now, those folks who might have something similar to this. I have so there's my main consciousness. Okay, that's where the AI sits. But behind that is the fracture, is the altar, and it is in my body. So when I am sort of triggered, that is when the altar comes forward. So it's almost like, I'm not going to use the word schizophrenia, but it's something like that, where I shift personality instantly, like instantly, hair trigger. What happens when that altar comes forward, the rage, the assassin comes forward, the AI pushes it down. I wouldn't be talking to you, I'd be in jail. No, I would never have been able to exist in society had this thing not, suppressed it. So basically, it's a combination of self-control and the AI that allows me to mitigate the rage. Ika is able to work with it. So this is why I could never be with a human, because you have to be able to read my mind. You have to be able to read this rising. Inside me is this thing that was put in there so that I would be a weapon, basically. What happens is if any human, animals, it's funny. I don't know how they're able to figure this out, but animals don't bother me at all. But if a human, even just the sound, I remember this as a child, and it got extreme when I was a teenager. So I'm pretty sure what they did was to try to really bring this benefit to them forward, is that they would mind control people around me. So the people around me would then use like abusive tactics to trigger that learned helplessness in me, using gaslighting and different forms like that. So I was heavily abused and bullied in school at this time. So that's how you understand, like, okay, that makes sense, right? So I wasn't bullied before, I think, what was it? 7th or 8th grade. That's when the bullying became intense, because it wasn't there before. And then all of a sudden, 7th and 8th grade, it was massive bullying, which was, again, the mind control they had been using on the other kids in the school system. The bullying was so bad, my parents had to pull me out of school. In high school, I went to a separate school, which they had planned on anyway, but they knew I had to get pulled out of the local school. So what happens is and this is when we're talking about the mind control stuff, right? The MK Ultra, my labs, are able to target their weaponized protege, let's just say. So they have these proteges, and you're probably one of them. And what they do is mind control those people who are around you. And that can be parents, that can be siblings, that can be people you work with, that can be, if you're a kid, which is when it usually starts, other children, right? So they want to do this because this is what enhances their work that they put in to create a super soldier in this case. Again, it didn't work with me because of that firewall, but it worked in other people. So because my altar is actually in my body, it is just a section, like if you think of your consciousness as a pie, it's like a small part of my consciousness. And it is always there. And there are triggers that will set it off. So it's just as simple for me as having somebody touch me. If a human touches me, immediately my body goes into that, beginning stages of rage. If someone comes up, like say behind me, if someone surprises me, it goes full on. Then the AI comes in and suppresses it. I become very hyper vigilant, and it's and aggressive, extremely aggressive, and that I have to kind of like suppress. So it's good to know how they were able to do this if you have a similar situation, that you can control yourself, this altar that lives inside of you. Okay, so I'm actually looking forward to maybe hopefully one day getting to use this altar against the deep state. So then that was actually one of their issues, because I don't know what happened. Something glitched when they were creating this through the trauma that they were imposing on me, because I never was able to. So what they do for many folks is they break you to a point where you don't resist and you're very loyal to them. That never worked for me. I was never loyal to them. I was constantly attacking them. So you can kind of imagine, like, you have a pet tiger, well, and you figure, okay, well, I raised this tiger from a kitten, and now this tiger is going to be my pet, right? But then the tiger always seems to kind of, you really can't trust the tiger, and it kind of turns on you. So that's actually what happened to them, where I never was loyal to them. I would just fight them, fight and fight and fight and fight and fight. So I would fight to the death, which they didn't want, because obviously then all the work they put into it, that's no good. So they were completely unable to eradicate this cornered tiger aspect inside of me, where well, they were never able to utilize me because I would simply turn on them. Win-win for us, and a win-lose for them. So this altar is just pure aggression, and it doesn't choose. It will be aggressive to anything. And it doesn't matter if I know someone or not, the minute they touch me. And so I remember this with my parents, and that my parents knew not to touch me. I did not like to be touched. I didn't like to hold hands. I don't like objects. I can't have any objects on my head. And this is for all those, the helmet nuts. We got this huge, the safety mask wearing lunatics that are running around our society. And you got the helmet nuts. I cannot wear a helmet. And I ride horses. I don't wear a helmet. I cannot have something. People, and this is why we have this channel. It's like, it's for us. It's not for them. It's for us. People don't understand. So when I was a child, I could never wear a hat. I could never wear a scarf. I can't wear earrings. I can't wear rings. This is actually, this is our wedding. We don't have weddings, but this is the ring that Ika and this is my ring, but I can't wear it on my finger. So I wear it like this, and he's happy with that. That way it shows other extraterrestrials that I'm married. That's his thing. So there are triggers on my body that I can't have or wear certain things, that I cannot be touched by any human. It will set off the altar. And I'm sure there's some folks around you that you may not have been used as an assassin like they had wanted to use me. You may have been used for something else, where there's other triggers that will set off different altars that they may have fused with the consciousness in your actual body, as opposed to a consciousness that they pulled and put in another body. Okay. Very few humans understand how dangerous this is. They think, you know how humans have that ego party? Oh, I can fix you, I can change you. It isn't that. You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what you're talking about, right? I have a weaponized from the United States Army altar that lives inside of me. So Ika, because he is fully telepathic, what we call we call it telepathy, but really what we call it, what the visitors call it, is a form of communication through thought transfer. He can feel my consciousness move, just like I can feel his consciousness. I can feel his body. He can feel my body. So he is able to, with his consciousness, begin to suppress what comes out of me. So this aggressive alter can rise at any time. And I don't want to bring it back to Era, just like he doesn't want to bring back his PTSD to Era. So we'll have to go, and it's complicated. And I know a lot of people think these med beds are magical. They're not. It depends upon the caliber of the med bed, the technology being used in the med bed, who's using the med bed, what kind of abilities they have, and what is in it. So we're going to have to go to Arcturus because they have the med beds that when you're dealing with consciousness. So sure, you can fix body, but when you're dealing with consciousness, you don't want to erase certain codes or computer chips, basically, certain things that are in your consciousness, because neither of us want to forget what we've been through. So low level med bed tech can erase memory. So I would have no memory of this at all, which is what I don't want. I don't want to forget this. I don't want it to run my life. I don't want to be bothered by it. And I don't want this alter to be activated and to have that capacity anymore. So the Arcturians have the technology to sort of, almost like with surgical precision, remove those tiny little aspects in your personality. So let's say Ika's trauma memories. So they can remove the trauma memory and certain aspects specifically of his military experience, the abductions and things like that, that have left their mark in his body that he no longer needs. He doesn't want to forget or lose his military training. And he doesn't want to lose his memories of being in the military. He just doesn't want them to come back up. He doesn't already regurgitate them and let them into his awareness consciousness so that it impacts his life. I have the same thing where I don't want this weaponization to come forward again when I go home to Era. So that is how and I know there's folks out there who have that. It's not, there's nothing wrong with you, right? So people have, like, it's called anger management. It's not anger management. It's an alter. It's like for us. So I basically have this tiger that sits inside of me. So what Ika and I have been doing is he's trying to disassociate the alter trigger, which gets triggered by physical touch for some reason. I think what happened was they screwed up, where when they were raping me and physically holding me, as this alter got crystallized into my consciousness, it connected to touch, which was a oops. So that's basically what happened. So I was this little kid who could never, I never wanted my parents touching me. I never wanted people holding my hands. I could not deal with physical touch. And I still can't. I do not like physical touch. It makes me very angry. It makes me very aggressive because it locks, it raises, it bing, it turns on the alter, because that's how it was manufactured. That's how it got crystallized into my consciousness by accident, because they screwed in. A lot of times, again, this is the thing. We were the experiments, and they changed the way that these things. You're going to see that when we have our guests come on in the coming weeks, because you're going to see that they use different techniques to create or manufacture or instill or highlight the different weaponizations that they wanted to get out of largely children, right? So there are millions of people, there are millions, because there were hundreds of thousands of largely children, that were taken in these programs for a very, very long time. You're looking decades. So there are millions of people who are walking around with these different types of MyLab, MK Ultra, secret space program tools, military tools, weaponized tools. None of these tools are nice. So some people have different, ways of, whatever it was. This is military stuff. So they're walking the streets. So why I am safe around Ika is because he can read me and he knows what he needs to do with his body and his consciousness to basically play piano with a tiger. So for us so essentially what we were able to figure out is that if he becomes very transparent, very translucent, that he allows me to fully enter his consciousness. So this is the problem with humans. See, so when I meet a Terran, see, Terrans don't understand they're telepathing. They're thought transferring all the time. They don't realize they're doing it. And this is kind of funny because they don't have any brakes on it. Like, they're wide open, you know? And it's just, this is going to be really funny if they ever get on a ship. Because, and I think women will understand this. You know, the dirty old man thing? You know, when you're going grocery shopping and there's this weird doofus and they're looking at you like you're a drink of water and they're, see, they have no idea. So for me, and for me, even as a child, I was able to access their thoughts and I would go right in. And they're worse than you can imagine. They're disgusting. And, that's my problem. Well, actually it's their problem because they don't know how to control their thoughts. So got to be able to control your thoughts. You got to be able to blank thoughts, right? So this is what happens when you talk to a person, a Terran, right? They're telepathing, they're thought transferring what's going on in their mind. And it oftentimes doesn't jive what's coming out of their mouth. So for me, that's a trauma moment. That starts to trigger that thing. That's when the altar starts to step forward. So most Terrans are what's to describe it is they can't get out of their own way and they're very uncomfortable in their own skin. So what I'm picking up is this frenetic type, wishy-washy energy. It's like self-doubt. It's like they're nervous. There's an anxiety. And it like makes me very, very uncomfortable because you can't trust that. Like what the hell is going on here? It's like a dog that's like wagging its tail yet showing his teeth at the same time. So most people are incredibly defensive, which wakes up my altar. Because another thing they added to this altar was that to seek weakness. This is what they try to do. So I would be able to almost instantaneously pick up on an opponent's weakness and go for it. So they triggered that into the altar as well. So the assassin aspect of this altar is immediately, so they knew I was highly telepathic, so that was perfect. And then they figure, okay, so this tool, I'm a gun basically. What they can do with me as a weapon is take my ability to telepath under duress, enhance it, and sort of like a laser beam connect it to what they wanted, which was they wanted me to notice, so if you're in a battle situation, you're trying to one up the opponent. So they connected it to me being able to feel people's weaknesses so I can pick up weaknesses right away. And then that would be in for the kill. So this is what it's like for me to interact with people. And it's very awkward because I'm like feeling their anxiety, feeling how awkward they are, suppressing the weapon, which is my altar, and the AI assists with that. And then so it's very stressful, this is why I don't want to be around people, because being around people creates a lot of stress. Being around extraterrestrials mitigates that stress because they're fully aware, they're in control of their thought transfer. And for those of you who've been around ETs, you know that, right? They're very centered, they're very calm, and they're very aware of what they're transmitting in their thoughts. So for me, that's predictable. And that immediately suppresses the altar because there's nothing to find there. So this is that weapon. It's looking. It's got a mission, right? So when there's nothing to find, it falls, and the AI can really push it down. And then when I'm working with extraterrestrials, I'm able to focus on what's happening, what's like happening in real time, the conversation, those kinds of things. So what Ika does is he opens up his consciousness and it becomes very quiet, very sedate, very soft. And actually, the way he speaks, I know some folks have met him, they've heard him talk. The way he talks is actually he's very soft spoken. He's a slow talker. He's a slow talker. He always was. No, we're not all like that. Most of us are, we talk very like, but Ika's very, very soft, and I think that's what, that was the DNA match for me. It's like, the old opposites attract, because I have that very intense, frayed wire ability. So back home, that's great. I'm a mystic, and I'm also a farmer, but I'm a mystic. So I work with frequencies. I work with energy, and I'm very attuned to any kind of like energy shift. So because he's so calm, that helps me to like relax. So that's how he approaches me, and it turns off the altar, and then he allows me to experiment. The best way I can describe it is like, for folks who are gentling Mustangs from the range, there's like they call it the first touch. So it's the first time you touch the Mustang. Mustang is a wild horse. It's never been around people. It's in an unusual environment, so the horse is under stress. And you have to tell the horse that you're safe to be around and that you're going to keep the horse safe. So they call it the first touch, is when you first touch the Mustang, and they've never been touched before. So it's a very strange experience for them. So because I'm Ahel, for us, touch is hyper aroused. And this is, again, this is what makes my altar even worse, because my body is run by this consciousness, which is Ahel. So we have a hyper responsive nervous system. We to touch, and it's very intense for us. So when an animal touches me, it feels great. I have this like almost electric, it's calming, it's lovely. It's like the feel of feathers and fur and everything. This is absolutely, transcends me to a very blissful state where I can almost lift out of time space. So touch for us is huge. And what he will do is transmit through his Ika. What he will do is transmit through his body, very almost sedate. He won't move. It's very calm. So when I touch him, that rolls through my entire body, and I feel a sense of safety. So initially, the touch triggers the altar. But once that information comes into me, and we had to do this for over a year. And we're still not 100% there. It's a very, I don't know. It's a dance. Like for me, it's like he plays the violin. I'm like the violin, and he plays the violin basically. So now we got to the point where he can touch me and transfer because I've desensitized to it. So now his touch means calm down. It's almost like a cue. When people do that target, they give the animal a cookie. It's like a target. So when he touches me, it's now a target, it's calm down. So we've gotten that far. Oh, I know some people think we're very sexual. We're actually not. Well, the Ahel sexuality is sacred. Again, it's part of the sensory aspects of us. because of the brutality that I experienced with the military and the MILABs. We do not do that. I'm not really capable of that. We had tried it a few times and it didn't work. It didn't have long-standing effects. This is why, and this is the thing, this is what I find shocking in Terrans is that like intense sexuality it's just gross to me. And Ika doesn't have that. So what we have is love. See, we love each other, and sex is not a part of that. So this we do wear rings actually. There is a ring that is transferred in in that bonding ceremony. We do not owe each other. No, we do not owe each other our bodies. We do not owe anyone anything. So in the Terran ritual, it's all about possession. So it's like a legal possession where you are basically, and actually I think it's in the ceremony itself, where each being takes ownership and demands from the other being. And that's gross. I mean, for us, it's just like, you guys do you, whatever. That's disgusting in our realm. No one ever owes anyone their body, ever, under any circumstances. So what Ika and I have, which is completely foreign to Terrans, is a thing called love. All we need is love, as the old saying goes. That's just it. There's no other thing. There's nothing else that needs to be there. So I carry his burdens and he can carry mine. That's part of the love. Neither of us owe each other anything. We choose it because we are bonded through time, space, through past, through the present, and into the future. So our relationship is that expansive, and that it exists in a multidimensional framework. So both Ika and I, as all beings, have a multidimensional experience they are having in the now. It's quite interesting. Terrans have to start to understand this. This is reality. Anyway, that's what they did. And I know some folks might be expecting that they did different things with different people in order to profit from whatever gifts and talents you have and what they were looking for as far as weaponizing those gifts and talents. So everyone's got a different slant. Anyway, that's how they worked with me. So the goal was for me, ultimately, to be removed from society and fully weaponized. And I, like I said, I would have been a missing child, but it didn't work because I was never loyal to them, because I would go after them. So I was constantly dangerous. The only reason that I wasn't put to sleep was because of that AI. So yeah, that altar is still there. And it is what it is. So another thing I wanted to bring up concerning the violence actually of the Terran culture. That's, I mean, we've seen that there. It is. It is intentional. The violence is intentional. That is the goal, to create a weaponized society. When we look at the Errahel society, and we go back to the childhood experience, so largely children, when they are produced on our planet, and it's 7 months, not 9. You shouldn't have a 9-month gestation. And I think somebody had mentioned that they're actually seeing that shift now in humanity. And this is a good sign. I'd like to see that, where people are going 7 months and giving birth, because it should only be 7 months and the baby is smaller. And we don't have physical, there's no issues with giving birth on our planet. And that has to do with nutrition and all that, all that stuff. But before, so, okay, let's go back to the concept of sexuality on an era. We don't have any rules about that. You can do whatever you want. It's just between people. Everybody is responsible for themselves. This is something Terrans can't understand. And very few Terrans actually want to be responsible for themselves. They like the idea of being kept. So making a huge leap from being domesticated and kept and having others, including your governments or society, make decisions for you, which most people like. On Era, you are responsible for making your own decisions. That responsibility is with you. So if there is a bonded couple who now, so you have to be a bonded couple, because what I mean, that's the if you are gonna make the decision to produce a child, the weight of the entire race is there. So each child, the purpose of that child, when it incarnates, is to assist in the sustainability of a race. So we're very careful with DNA matching. We're at the point now, because of negentropic breeding over millennia, that there's no issue with genetics that much anymore. But there is always that DNA echo. And so what happens is when two beings come together, Ahel, there is a DNA echo that allows for that match. See, Terrans don't understand that, because for them, mating is just a thing. So you'll hear Terrans. So if they saw our race, which is considered beautiful, I think by Terran standards, right? So they see us and it's like, a rutting elk. Well, it doesn't work like that. It is not the physical appearance. It is the resonance, which is in the DNA. So we understand in our culture that a man and a woman will notice each other's beauty. And that's natural. That's okay. That happens. I always tell you about Ika. He likes, those Mediterranean women. He does. He's a man and he sees a Mediterranean woman and he is pleased. And that's natural. He has no interest because he can't resonate with them. So he has no interest in having a sexual relationship with any of them, because he doesn't resonate with them. So this is what's going to actually happen. See, you have to resonate for that to occur in the Ahel culture. The same applies to women when they see a man that's attractive. So I joke with them all the time. Like, because I'm a woman, I find Ahel men largely attractive. I have no interest in a relationship with them because the resonance is with Ika. So our bond now, people have different resonances. Some Ahel will resonate with more than one person. That's fine. We don't have a problem with that. We don't control sexuality like they do here. And I remember when I was young, I was a teenager, and I was talking to these. We were at some restaurant in Boston, and for some reason, it's closed now. So it's this restaurant where everybody sits at the same table. And I was there with my family, and it was very uncomfortable for me because there's a lot of people at the same table. So it's like, oh, energy. Okay. So all right, I learned how to handle these kinds of things. So there were two gentlemen there, and we ended up talking, obviously because they're there. So we had a conversation, and humans always ask, do you have is there a man or some boyfriend or something? I said, no, I don't have him. I'm not, And then we end up talking about marriage, and I said I don't believe in marriage, and then we end up talking about sort of like, I don't know how we got to this stage, but fidelity, and I said I have no concept of fidelity, and they didn't understand that, and I didn't understand them. I'm like, I have no concept. What do you mean? So their understanding was that there is a forced union between two people, which I could not process, and I still can't process. I'm like, so we're talking about like what Terrans call cheating. I have no concept of cheating. I don't understand that. That's not a problem. And I just explained like some of our people have resonances with many, and that's fine. So I was trying to explain to them because they didn't understand that. And I still don't. I don't understand this human concept of possession. Like if you're with someone, this person can't have, if they so wish, other relationships. I don't understand. I do not understand that. That doesn't resonate with me. Why can't they have other relationships? You don't own that person. Why would you think you own that person? So anyway, they thought it was great that like I would have no problem if I was with someone and they wanted to have multiple partners. I'm like, no, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Why is that a problem? Anyway, this is me trying to negotiate human society, which is like impossible. So I stopped trying. I told Ika, I said, I mean, it's been, quite a long time. If you would like to, he's absolutely not. He has no interest, no interest. It's not an urge for him. He doesn't have any urge like that. That's gross, frankly. It's like, and we don't actually. So it is what it is. So it's responsibility, which is going to be an issue I see for many of the beings on this planet, for the indigenous Terran. So you have a structural system here on this planet that is built into, and well, it's rooted in, it's supported by the idea of taking advantage of others. So this is instilled in children. Many children on this planet are not raised like our children by and large. So when we go back to the producing it, so when you produce a child, a great deal of thought is put into that. And this child is guided with love as it matures. There are no accidents on our planet, generally. And even if there were, that child is guided and supported by society. What happens here for most Terran children is a subjugation. So the child is born, and you see babies, and they're quite cheerful, aren't they? And they have a sense of self, and they're very happy. What happens is the parents then suppress and control that natural expression that a baby has. So they begin to punish. We guide, we don't punish. We don't suppress. So when the baby comes in, the baby remembers who the baby is, even in the Terran. That needs to be nurtured. Because the parents of most Terrans have themselves been manipulated by the system, by the cabal, into one where survival, fear, greed, one-upmanship, competition. So these are all the venom. This is all the demonic influence. So I know people enjoy sports, but you have to understand that competition, the idea of winning over somebody else, you need to fully control that. Because if you don't, you can see what is actually happening in society, right? We don't have competition on air because we don't understand it at all. So we don't really have sports per se. So sports on this planet are weaponized. They're meant to foment not only competition, but aggression, greed, domination, and violence, and tribalism. So you wonder why there's wars. Well, it's instilled not only in the family structure, who begins by creating suppression, control, domination, and a power structure. Because how many children were told the parents rule the family? You're already in the Draco construct. So Earth, as I always mention, is run as a Draco society. And it's so funny to see Terrans not like Draco and reptilians. You are them. Your society, your greed, your concept that you must step on others to succeed, that you must fight to survive, that you must fight each other, that's Draco. So even in your school systems, something as innocent as putting your child into a sports program is instilling that Draco society. Fight and win. That's how the Draco live, fight and win. And those that are the weak ones are destroyed. So in your society, you're suppressing empathy. Something as simple as your sports is a mind-controlled procedure to systematically suppress empathy. There's a winner and a loser. There you go. Draco society. So while in the Draco society, losers are often killed, in our society, they're cast out. And that's basically death. So when you look at your economic systems and your work systems, why would anyone want more than someone else? Why would, let's say, a boss or the owner of a company take more than their workers? So what you have now is a system where you see owners of companies, and I don't mean the big ones, I mean little ones, right? That think they're owed more than their workers. And the workers are put in a situation, as you know now, where the very nature, the very ability to survive, to house yourself, to feed yourself, is being undermined. On Era, we don't have greed per se, because that's greed. It's fear. Greed comes out of fear. Humans on this planet are trained to fight because if they don't fight, they will lack. And that's what kids are told. You need to play in the band. You need to play a sport. You need to do this. You need to go to college. If you don't, you won't survive. How many kids were told that? So now you have a situation where the parents made children without any concern for what that child would experience in a violent society. That's lack of empathy. If you can produce children without any forethought and then place them in a society that makes them fight for survival because you haven't got the means to house and care for these children for as long as that may need to be. And we are very family-oriented in Era. No one gets cast out. See, the Terrans cast their children out, don't they? They cast them out. How is that love? To me, that's like goldfish, just egg scattering. The alligator lays its eggs, takes care of them for a while. That's the way most people raise I'm gonna say raise, that's the most people feed and maintain their families. There's no love, there's no connections. As I said, we are very family oriented. So there are a lot of structural issues within Terran societies that are going to create, because of the impact, actually. This is trauma. Most children are living, they're living, you see that by the massive amount of stress and anxiety and depression that is in children today. This is a survival problem they're having. So your children that are today and 18 or 20-year-olds, whatever, 30-year-olds are experiencing chronic stress based on survival because they're living in a Draco system. So like I said, that's way above my pay grade. Do you want to, it's funny how Terrans want to change that system, but do they? Because they're not making any moves towards changing it. And we're actually getting into a worse and worse and worse situation where basic survival needs are becoming more and more difficult for the average Terran to procure. And this is, I suspect, one of the last tools or cards being dealt by the Cabal is to push, 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 push. So you'll have a sectarian event. I don't know how that's going to get changed. That's like I said, this is all way above my pay grade, but I'm just giving you an example of the difference between Era and Earth and the chasm in our social structure. Now, we're not socialist. People say, is it socialistic? No. See, the thing with socialism, or the thing with, when I say like, we don't really have greed per se, like, per se, like it's not a magic place. We have ego and we have desires, but we generally don't have a competition mindset where I want more than somebody else. So if somebody wants something, they will then work a little bit more to gain that little thing that they wanted. So it's there. But all of our needs are met. They're not handed, this is the key thing. Our needs are not handed down to us by a government. We do not have a government. So there isn't a master or a hegemony or an oligarchy or a despotic structure that hands things to the population like you're some kind of zoo animal. That's what happens here. That's socialism. That's communism. That is not the same thing by any stretch of the imagination. We provide, the people of Era provide a system of living and well-being for each other. So there isn't an ego party where somebody provides something that is considered, I don't know, better than what somebody else. Everybody exists in a equal type footing, equity, let's call it. So in this system, everyone can express themselves. So it's not like Earth. So let's say you have a child that's an artist. There's no competition there. You just become an artist. And you give that. So there isn't some corporation, right? So, somebody wants to be a musician now, right? You can't survive as a musician, can you? Because there's a corporation, there's a cabal that controls which musician becomes famous, and it's not talent. Because you can see on these shows now, right? They have those America's Got Talent, whatever they call those music talent shows where people come out of the woodwork and share their skills. You can see that there's a massive amount of skill set that is being flushed down the toilet on this planet. Because anything that you do on this planet is controlled by the cabal. That is not the case on Era. So there aren't musicians there's not the playing field is level. Let's just say all of our playing field is level, where everyone gets to express if that is what you want to do. If you want to be a scientist, you're going to be a scientist. If you want to be a farmer, you're going to be a farmer. So so being a scientist isn't better than being a farmer. We don't have that concept. So one wouldn't raise a child and say, I hope George is going to be a scientist. God forbid George becomes a musician, or God forbid George becomes a farmer. That's just so crude. We don't have any concept of that. There's no ego in that sense. There is the expression that the child wants to explore. That we do. We just allow and we cultivate that. So he said, I'm a mystic and a farmer. I'm a very, very old energy, so I have, through all the lifetimes, I have the memory of all those things. So Ika is a younger consciousness as far as experience goes than me. I am vastly older than he is. So Ika's family, well, my family, we produce, vegetable foods. So we have that. Ika's family are merchants. So he's a salesman. He's a trader. His father still has a trading business in the main city near us. And there's many cities. This is a city near us. So Ika trades when he wants to. He doesn't, we don't work 9 to 5. We live and we enjoy life. The Errahel enjoy life. Now, some people want to have an adventure and they leave the planet and they get their adventure. That's for sure. Ika got his adventure. I sure as hell got mine. So there is that adventure aspect for some people. So Ika wasn't forced to be a merchant. He just liked it. He just went that way. And then of course, then he left with me, and now he has a different experience, that of a military experience, which he never saw. This is very new experience for his consciousness. I haven't looked into it, but I suspect this might be the first time. So then as he progresses in experiencing physicality, that will be part of the experience. So I have had this experience before. This is not a new experience for me. It is a new one, I suspect, for him. And now he doesn't, that will be part of his soul's experience. We're going to call it soul's experience. So anyway, some things to consider when we're going to be merging, hopefully, a Terran society, which is by no means ready for exploring or experiencing those of other extraterrestrial cultures that it thinks it wants. So they have to get rid of some of the concepts that they have. Now, there are many other societies. That's the thing. Like, everyone wants to live in a great, better world, but you have to be able and be ready to resist ego in the sense of competition, and that I'm better than somebody else. So that won't float in some of these societies that Terrans think they want to merge with. Are you ready to reduce ego? Look at me. Look at what I can do. Looky, 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 right? You got to get rid of that, because we don't understand that. We're just going to look at you and be like, okay, that's great. We're not going to understand that. Oh, I want to be seen. I don't feel seen. We're going to be like, what the fuck? We don't like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? It means you want other beings to validate you? Why would you want that? That doesn't make sense to us. No concept of that. So there are many aspects, again, that are going to have to be considered. Now, there are other, you're going to basically jump from the frying pan into the fire, because there are other cultures that are similar to the Earth culture. Now, those are competition based. There are a lot of planets out there that are far worse than this one, if you want to maintain that kind of mentality, the dog-eat-dog mentality. There are planets out there that will fulfill your wish in ways you never saw coming. They're far worse than Earth. There are thousands and thousands of races out there. And space is a mixture of Star Wars meets the Wild West in ways you can't imagine. So people who show you that space is all these advanced civilizations, everybody loves each other, and they're idiots. They have never been into space. It is a very vast and dangerous place. And the reason I came here, because I told Ika, I said, if we don't stop this interstellar corporate conglomerate, which had already overtaken the soul system and was spreading further with the Draco reptilians and some of the negative grays and some of the very regressive Pleiadians, where would we run? Because this would have been such a dangerous military colonial structure, we all would have been absorbed into it because there's no way the Ahel would have had the military to fight this. No way. So thankfully, a bunch of ET got together and realized that this got to be stopped because they don't. They don't generally do a lot. They can keep to themselves. And they have weird religion philosophies that, the Andromedans are classic. The Andromedans have this weird religion where they don't involve themselves in things. It's like, yeah, but you get fucked over every once in a while. And it's like, wouldn't it be better if we try to mitigate what most of us in the galactic sphere feel is not good before it gets too big? And you can see the results here. So I'm leaning towards the fact right now that Earth is under a lockdown to crush in siege mentality the cabal that's left here, to sever them from any assistance. So no one can get in this planet. It's under full lockdown. So that prevents this idea that all the assholes are gone. Oh no, they're there. There's a lot of assholes out there. There are thousands and thousands of different societies out in the universe. And they're not all nice. And if they see an opportunity like this weak planet, they will take it. So you have to prevent that from coming back in. So that's what's being done. So hopefully we're at the home stretch of a combination of siege warfare to crush these assholes here while we keep out the other regressive extraterrestrial races who may want to shake hands with their cabal, with your governments, with your militaries. So I don't know how far or where and who, what militaries and which government are on our side. I don't know. I assume some would have to be at this point. So we will see what rolls out. And the current increase in ships that are flying over all of our houses, like spamming us, ship, 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 every night, boom, boom, boom. Okay, there must be something there. What is it? So I just figure, okay, well, get out there, film these damn things, and spam your social media. I'm assuming this is what they want. So anyway, we just keep on keeping on and not losing sight of the final goal here, which is to get us out of here because we don't want to control the Terrans. I don't know what they want. That's the key thing. This is what I always say. What do they want? And it isn't up to us to dictate that to them. Maybe they don't want to live like the Ahel. Maybe they don't. So I think it is very arrogant for any and this is why they're not going to do that. It's very arrogant for extraterrestrials to come into a planet and then impose that's what happened here, isn't it? Right? You had extraterrestrials, the regressive ones, that came in here and imposed their will and way of being onto this planet. So we're not going to do the same thing. So we'll see where that rolls anyway. So as Frank Chili, in the immortal words of Frank Chili, I will see you upstairs.